Daniel Cooper stood at the window of the transport ship and watched the planet grow larger. Prime looked like a blue and silver marble from space. It was beautiful, but Daniel knew beauty could hide danger. He had spent 3 months studying Valyrian culture before this mission, and one thing was clear. The Valyrians did not like humans very much. Nervous, Ambassador walked up beside him. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had done this job for 20 years. A little, Daniel admitted. He was only 28 and this was his first major diplomatic mission. They barely agreed to let us land. They need us, said. Their war with the Empire drained their resources. We have food, medicine, and raw materials they need. That gives us leverage. Daniel nodded but said nothing. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. He knew that need could turn into resentment quickly. The ship landed in the capital city 2 hours later. Daniel stepped out onto the platform and felt the alien sun on his face. It was warmer than Earth's sun and had a slight orange tint. The air smelled different too, like metal and flowers mixed together. A group of Valyrian guards waited for them. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with pale blue skin and silver eyes. They wore armor that looked like it was made from black crystal. Each guard carried a weapon that hummed with energy. "Welcome to Prime," one of the guards said. His voice was cold. "Follow us." They walked through the city toward the palace. Daniel looked around as they went. The buildings were massive, carved from white stone that seemed to glow, but something bothered him. All the people they passed wore different colored robes. The ones in white robes walked with their heads high. The ones in gray robes kept their eyes down. The ones in brown robes did all the work, carrying boxes and cleaning streets. "Caste system," whispered to him. "White is nobility, gray is middle class, brown is servants. Never forget which one you're talking to." The palace was even more impressive than the city. It rose up like a mountain of white stone and silver metal. Gardens surrounded it, filled with plants that Daniel had never seen before. Purple flowers grew on trees with black bark. Vines with red leaves covered the walls. They entered a massive throne room. The ceiling was so high that Daniel could barely see it. At the far end, sitting on a throne made of dark blue crystal, was King. He was bigger than the other Valyrians, with broader shoulders and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. His robes were pure white with silver thread. A crown of twisted metal sat on his head. "Humans," the king said. His voice echoed through the room. "You have come far from your small world." Stepped forward and bowed. Daniel did the same. "Your Majesty," said, "we are honored by your invitation. We hope to build a lasting friendship between our peoples." The king laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Friendship? You want our technology, we need your resources. Let us not pretend this is about friendship." Daniel felt his jaw tighten but kept quiet. This was show. "We prefer honesty," said smoothly. "Yes, we would benefit from trade, but we also believe that two great civilizations can learn from each other." "Learn from humans," the king leaned forward. "What could we possibly learn from a species that only reached the stars 200 years ago? We have traveled space for 10,000 years." Before could answer, a door opened to the side of the throne room. A woman walked in and Daniel forgot to breathe for a moment. She was Valyrian but different from the others. Her skin was a lighter blue, almost silver in the strange light. Her eyes were not just silver but had flecks of gold in them. She wore white robes like nobility, but hers had patterns of gold thread that caught the light. Her hair was long and dark, almost black, and it fell past her shoulders. "Father," she said, her voice clear and strong, "I apologize for the interruption." The king said, and his voice softened slightly, "I thought you were studying." "I finished early." She walked closer to the throne, then turned to look at the human delegation. Her eyes met Daniel's for just a moment, and he saw curiosity there. "I heard we had visitors from Earth. I wanted to see them for myself." The king sighed. "Very well, Princess, meet Ambassador and her assistant Daniel Cooper. They have come to discuss trade agreements." bowed her head slightly to them. "Welcome to our world. I hope your stay is pleasant." "Thank you, Your Highness," said. The king stood up. "My daughter will serve as your liaison during your stay. She will show you to your quarters and help you understand our ways. Do not mistake her youth for weakness. She is trained in diplomacy and warfare, and she reports directly to me." Daniel understood the message. The princess was there to watch them and report everything back to the king. "We appreciate the honor," said. The king waved his hand. "You may go. We will begin formal negotiations tomorrow. See that they are comfortable." As they left the throne room, walked beside them, two guards followed at a distance. "Your quarters are in the East Wing," she said. "They are usually reserved for important guests. You will have everything you need." "Thank you," said. "Your father is very direct." "He does not trust easily," said. "Especially not humans. There are many in the court who believe your species is too primitive to be useful allies." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest but pushed it down. "And what do you believe, Your Highness?" Glanced at him. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Interest, maybe. "I believe that judging a species by their technology alone is foolish, but that is not a popular opinion here." They walked through long corridors filled with art and statues. Daniel noticed that all the servants they passed were wearing brown robes. They pressed themselves against the walls when the princess walked by, their eyes on the floor. One servant, an elderly male, stumbled and dropped a tray of dishes. The sound of breaking crystal echoed through the hall. The servant fell to his knees, his whole body shaking. "Forgive me, Your Highness," he said, his voice trembling. "I am old and clumsy. I will accept any punishment." The two guards moved forward, reaching for their weapons. Daniel took a step forward without thinking. "It was an accident," Daniel said quickly. "Everyone makes mistakes." The guards stopped and looked at. She stared at Daniel with an expression he could not read. "Help him up," she said quietly. Daniel bent down and helped the old servant to his feet. The man's eyes went wide with shock. "It is all right," Daniel said gently. "No harm done." Watched this exchange with growing interest. After a long moment, she spoke to the guards. "Clean this up and send the cost to my personal account. There will be no punishment." The old servant looked like he might cry. He bowed deeply then to Daniel, then hurried away. As they continued walking, was quiet. When they finally reached the guest quarters, she turned to them. "Dinner will be brought to you in 1 hour. Tomorrow, formal negotiations begin at dawn." She paused, then looked directly at Daniel. "What you did back there, helping a servant, that is not normal here." "Why not?" Daniel asked. "He needed help." "Because he is brown caste," said. "Nobility does not touch servants. It is beneath us." "Maybe that rule needs to change," Daniel said. His eyes widened slightly. Then for the first time she smiled. It was small and quick, but it was real. "Maybe it does," she said softly. "Rest well, humans. Tomorrow will be a long day." She turned and walked away, her guards following. Daniel watched her go, wondering what he had just started. Put a hand on his shoulder. "Be careful, Daniel. That princess is the king's daughter, and you just questioned their entire social system on the first day." "I know," Daniel said, but he was still thinking about that smile. Something told him that this mission was going to be more complicated than anyone had planned. The next 3 weeks passed slowly. Every morning, Daniel sat in a cold conference room with Valyrian officials. They argued about trade routes, tariffs, and resource allocation. Every afternoon, Princess gave them tour of the city or the palace. She was polite but distant. Daniel caught her watching him sometimes, but she always looked away quickly. Then everything changed on a rainy afternoon. Daniel was walking through the palace gardens alone, was meeting with some lower-level officials, and he had a few hours to himself. The rain was light, more like mist, and it felt good on his skin. He found a bench under a large tree with purple flowers and sat down. "You like the rain?" Daniel turned. Princess stood a few feet away. She wore simpler robes today, still white but without all the gold thread. Her hair was loose instead of tied back. She looked younger somehow, more human. I do, Daniel said. On Earth I grew up near the ocean. It rained a lot. May I sit? She asked. Of course. She sat on the other end of the bench, leaving space between them. For a while, neither spoke. The rain pattered on the leaves above them. Why did you help that servant? Asked suddenly, on the first day. Daniel thought about his answer. Because he needed help. Where I come from, it does not matter what job someone does. We are all equal. We all deserve kindness. Equal repeated the word like it was foreign. We do not have that concept here. Some are born to rule. Some are born to serve. That is the natural order. Who decided that? Daniel asked. Who decided that one life is worth more than another? Was quiet for a long time. My ancestors, thousands of years ago, they built this empire on order and structure. Everyone has their place. And you never question it. I never did before, said softly. She turned to look at him. But I have been thinking about what you said, about change, about helping others. And what do you think? I think it is dangerous to question the way things have always been, but I also think that maybe dangerous thoughts are sometimes necessary. She stood up suddenly. Come with me. I want to show you something. Daniel followed her through the gardens to a part of the palace he had not seen before. They went down a stone staircase and through an old wooden door. Inside was a library, but not like the grand public library he had seen. This one was smaller, older. Dust covered many of the shelves. This was my mother's private library, said. She died when I was young. No one comes here anymore. She walked to a shelf and pulled out an old book. The pages were yellow with age. These are histories of our empire. The official versions say that the caste system has always existed, that it is natural and right. But my mother found older texts that tell a different story. What story? Daniel asked. That the castes were created by conquest. That thousands of years ago, the nobles were simply warriors who defeated other tribes and made them servants. It was not natural. It was force. Hands shook slightly as she held the book. If that is true, then everything we have been taught is a lie. Daniel moved closer. What do you believe? I do not know what to believe anymore, said. She looked up at him and he saw fear and hope mixed in her eyes. Tell me about Earth, about how humans live. So Daniel told her. He told her about democracy, about freedom of choice, about how anyone could become anything if they worked hard enough. He told her about art and music made by people from all walks of life. He told her about love marriages, where people chose their partners instead of having them chosen by family. Listened to every word like she was starving and he was offering food. That sounds like a dream, she said. A beautiful dream. It is not perfect, Daniel said honestly. We have our problems too, but we believe that freedom is worth fighting for. Fighting for, repeated. Yes, I think I understand now. Over the next week, they met in the library every afternoon. Daniel brought her books and videos from Earth. She showed him ancient Valyrian texts that questioned the caste system. They talked for hours about philosophy, freedom, and the nature of power. Daniel found himself thinking about her all the time. The way she laughed when he told her funny stories about Earth. The way her eyes lit up when she learned something new. The way she challenged him with smart questions that made him think harder about his own beliefs. One afternoon, they were watching a video of a human wedding on Daniel's portable screen. The bride and groom were kissing, and their families were cheering. They chose each other, asked. Yes, Daniel said. No one forced them. They fell in love and decided to spend their lives together. Love, said quietly. We do not marry for love here. Marriage is political. It is about alliances and power. That sounds lonely, Daniel said. It is, turned off the screen and looked at him. Daniel, I need to tell you something. My father is planning to announce my engagement soon, to Lord. Daniel felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Who is Lord? A powerful noble who controls 3 colonies. My father wants the alliance. I have known about this since I was a child. His voice was flat, emotionless. I always accepted it. It was my duty. And now, Daniel asked, his heart pounding. Now I do not want to, whispered. Now I wonder what it would be like to choose for myself. They stared at each other. Daniel knew he should step back, should remember that she was a princess and he was just a diplomatic assistant. But he could not move. He started to say, "Your Highness." They jumped apart. A guard stood in the doorway. "Your Highness, the king requests your presence immediately." His face went blank, all emotion draining away. "Of course, tell him I am coming." The guard left, turned to Daniel. "You should not come here anymore. It is too dangerous." "Dangerous for who?" "For both of us." She walked toward the door, then stopped. "But I do not regret it. These past weeks, talking to you, learning from you, it has been the happiest time of my life." Then she was gone, leaving Daniel alone in the dusty library with his heart racing. That evening called Daniel to her quarters. Her face was serious. "We have a problem," she said. "The king knows you have been spending time with the princess." "We were just talking," Daniel said. "I do not care what you were doing. Lord reported it to the king. He is furious." Paced the room. "Daniel, the princess is engaged. Do you understand what that means? Lord sees you as a threat. The king sees you as an insult to his family." "Did not want this engagement," Daniel said. "It does not matter what she wants. She is royalty. She has responsibilities." Stopped and looked at him. "Daniel, I know you have feelings for her. I can see it on your face. But you need to end this now before it destroys the entire mission." "And what about what once? Does anyone care about that?" "No," said bluntly. "No one cares. That is how their system works. You knew that when we came here." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. "Then their system is wrong." "Maybe it is, but it is not our place to change it." That night, Daniel could not sleep. He kept thinking about trapped in a life she did not choose, married to a man she did not love. He thought about the old servant who had been terrified over breaking some dishes. He thought about all the people in brown robes who kept their eyes down and never spoke unless spoken to. Around midnight, he heard a soft knock on his door. He opened it carefully. Stood there wearing a dark cloak over her robes. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. "I had to see you," she said, "one more time." Daniel pulled her inside quickly and closed the door. "What are you doing? If someone sees you here." I know it is dangerous, but I could not leave things the way they were." She took a deep breath. "Tomorrow, my father will announce my engagement to Lord at the state dinner. There will be a big ceremony. I will smile and accept, and then my fate will be sealed." Daniel said helplessly, "Let me finish, please." Tears ran down her face. "These weeks with you have shown me what life could be like, what freedom feels like, what it means to be seen as a person, not just a princess or a political tool." She stepped closer to him. "I think I am in love with you, Daniel Cooper. I know it is impossible. I know nothing can come of it, but I needed you to know before it is too late." Daniel's hands shook as he reached up and gently wiped the tears from her face. "I am in love with you too," he said, "and I do not care if it is impossible." He kissed her and she kissed him back. For a moment nothing else existed. Not the king, not the engagement, not the impossible gap between their worlds. Just two people who had found something rare and precious. When they finally pulled apart, was smiling through her tears. "What do we do now?" "I do not know," Daniel admitted, "but we will figure it out together." "Together," repeated. Then her smile faded. "Daniel, my father will not let this stand. When he finds out about us, he will do everything in his power to keep us apart." "Then we will have to be stronger than his power," Daniel said. Laughed sadly. "You are talking about defying a king." I am talking about choosing love over fear. Is that not what freedom means? Looked at him with wonder. Yes, yes, that is exactly what it means. She kissed him one more time, then slipped back out into the night. Daniel stood at the door for a long time after she left, knowing that everything was about to change. The state dinner was the most elaborate event Daniel had ever attended. The grand hall glittered with lights that floated in the air without any visible support. Hundreds of nobles in white robes filled the tables. Servants in brown robes moved silently between them, serving food and wine. Daniel sat at the human delegation's table, far from the royal platform. He could see sitting beside her father. She wore a dress that looked like it was made of liquid silver. Her face was calm and empty, showing nothing. But Daniel knew she was suffering. Lord sat on her other side. He was a tall Valyrian with cold eyes and a cruel smile. He kept leaning close to, whispering things that made her jaw tighten. King stood up and the hall fell silent. "My people," the king's voice boomed across the room. "Tonight we celebrate a great alliance. My daughter, Princess, will marry Lord in 3 months. This union will strengthen our empire and secure our future." The nobles cheered, stood and bowed to the crowd. She looked like a statue, beautiful and lifeless. Daniel's hands clenched into fists under the table. "You need to control your face," whispered to him. "Everyone can see how you feel." Daniel forced himself to relax and clapped with everyone else, but inside he was screaming. After the announcement, music played and people danced. Daniel saw dance with Lord. The noble held her too close, possessive and proud, kept her eyes down the whole time. Then the king stood and walked directly toward the human table. Everyone went quiet again. "Daniel Cooper," the king said, his voice was ice, "come with me now." Daniel stood up, his heart racing. He followed the king out of the hall and into a private chamber. 2 guards closed the doors behind them. "I know," the king said without preamble. "Your Majesty, I do not understand." "Do not lie to me, human." The king's eyes blazed with fury. "I know you have been meeting with my daughter in secret. I know you have been filling her head with your primitive ideas about freedom and choice, and I know that you have dared to touch her." Daniel's blood ran cold. "We only talked." "I have eyes everywhere in this palace," the king interrupted. "A servant saw you kiss my daughter last night. Do you understand what you have done? You have dishonored the crown princess of the Valyrian Empire. In older times, I would have you executed for such an insult." "Did nothing wrong," Daniel said, forcing strength into his voice. "We care about each other. Is that such a crime?" "Care?" the king laughed harshly. "You think your feelings matter. She is a princess. She belongs to her people, to her duty. You are nothing. A representative of a weak, young species that barely understands space travel. We may be young, but we know that people should be free to choose their own lives." The king moved closer, towering over Daniel. "Let me make something very clear. You will never see my daughter again. You will not speak to her, write to her, or think about her. If you try, I will destroy not just you, but your entire delegation. I will cancel all trade agreements. I will make sure that humanity becomes an enemy of the Valyrian Empire. Do you want that blood on your hands?" Daniel felt trapped. If he pushed this, he would ruin everything he had worked for. He would harm Earth's relationship with a powerful alien empire. But if he gave up, would be married to a man she did not love, trapped forever. "What about what wants?" Daniel asked quietly. "She wants what I tell her to want," the king said. "That is the way things work here. Now get out of my sight. You have 2 days to finish your negotiations and leave this planet. If I see you near my daughter again, consequences will be severe." Daniel left the room, his mind spinning. He went back to his quarters and paced for hours, trying to figure out what to do. A soft knock came at his door near dawn. He opened it to find a young woman in white robes. It took him a moment to recognize her. Princess Lyra had mentioned her younger sister, but Daniel had never met her. "Quickly, let me in," Lyra said, glancing down the hallway. Daniel led her inside. Lyra looked like a younger version of, but her eyes were sharper, more calculating. "My sister asked me to deliver a message," Lyra said. "She is being confined to her quarters. Father has put guards on her door and taken away all her communication devices. She cannot leave or contact anyone." "Is she all right?" Daniel asked desperately. "She is heartbroken," Lyra said bluntly. "But she is also angry. I have never seen her like this before. You have changed her, Daniel Cooper. I am not sure if that is good or bad yet. Can you take a message back to her?" Lyra hesitated. "If my father finds out I am helping you, he will punish me too." "Then why are you here?" "Because is my sister and I love her, and because," Lyra paused, "because I have watched her my whole life, doing everything she was supposed to do, being the perfect princess. She never complained. She never asked for anything for herself. And now, for the first time, she has found something that makes her happy. It seems wrong to take that away from her." "Thank you," Daniel said. "Do not thank me yet. I cannot fix this problem. Even if I wanted to help more, there is nothing I can do." Lyra moved toward the door. "My father is the king. His word is law. Unless is willing to give up everything, her title, her family, her home, she will marry Lord in 3 months. That is reality." After Lyra left, Daniel went to find. She was in her office, working on final trade agreements. "We need to help," Daniel said. Looked up tired. "Daniel, we cannot get involved in royal family drama." "This is not drama. This is about a person's freedom." "A person who happens to be a princess," said. "Daniel, I understand how you feel, but we are diplomats. Our job is to maintain good relationships between governments, not to interfere with their internal affairs. So we just abandon her." "What do you want me to do? Start an interstellar incident? Get humanity banned from Valyrian space?" Stood up. "Sometimes the right thing and the possible thing are not the same. This is one of those times." Daniel left before he said something he would regret. He walked through the palace gardens, thinking hard. Was right about one thing. They could not fix this through normal diplomatic channels. That night, another knock came at his door. Daniel opened it to find a brown-robed servant, the same old man he had helped on the first day. "Sir Daniel," the servant whispered, "the princess asks if you can meet her, but it must be secret." "How?" "Follow me." The old servant led Daniel through corridors he had never seen before. They went downstairs and through passages that smelled of age and dust. Finally, they reached a small room with old furniture. Was there, wearing a simple dark robe with no jewelry. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were determined. "You came," she said. "Of course I came." Daniel wanted to hold her, but was aware of the servant standing nearby. "It is all right," said. "He is loyal to me. He is one of many who are." "Many?" Daniel asked. The servants said, "The brown caste. I have been kind to them my whole life and they remember. They are helping me now." She stepped closer to Daniel. "I have a plan, but it is dangerous. I am going to escape the palace and seek asylum at the human embassy." Daniel's eyes went wide. "Your father will see that as an act of war." "Maybe, but Ambassador talks often about human rights and freedom. If I ask for asylum publicly, she will have to respond according to your principles. And if she grants it, my father cannot take me back by force without admitting that the Valyrian Empire violates basic freedoms." "It is a huge risk," Daniel said. "I know, but staying here is also a risk. If I marry Lord, I will die slowly over years. My spirit will die even if my body lives." Took his hands. "I would rather fight for one chance at freedom than accept a lifetime of captivity." "When?" Daniel asked. 3 days from now. There is a state ceremony where nobles from across the empire will attend. The palace will be crowded and busy. That is when we move." "We?" Daniel asked. "The servants will help me escape, but I need you to convince Ambassador to grant me asylum when I arrive. Can you do that?" Daniel thought about words, about duty and diplomacy and not interfering. Then he thought about trapped in a marriage she did not want, living a life chosen by others. "Yes," he said, "I will convince her." "Thank you," kissed him softly. "Whatever happens, I want you to know that you have given me something precious. You showed me that I have a choice. That is a gift I will never forget." The next 3 days felt like years. Daniel talked to over and over, trying to prepare her for what was coming. She was angry at first, then worried, then resigned. "If she shows up at the embassy, I will have to consider her request," admitted. "We cannot turn away someone asking for asylum without even hearing them. But Daniel, the king will be furious. This could destroy everything we have built here." "Some things are worth more than trade agreements," Daniel said. The night of the ceremony arrived. Daniel stood in the embassy compound, watching the gates, was beside him, tense and silent. Hours passed. Then, just before dawn, he heard shouting in the distance. A figure in a dark cloak ran toward the embassy gates. Behind her, palace guards were coming fast. Daniel ran to open the gates. Stumbled through, breathing hard. "I request asylum," she said loudly, clearly. "I am princess of and I seek protection under human law." The palace guards stopped at the gate. They did not enter the embassy grounds, but their hands were on their weapons. Looked at, then at Daniel, then at the guards. Finally, she nodded. "Request received and granted," said. "As of this moment, you are under the protection of the Earth diplomatic mission." Almost collapsed from relief, Daniel caught her and held her up. In the distance, alarms were sounding in the palace. The king would know by now. Everything was about to get much worse. But as Daniel looked at its face, saw the hope and fear and courage there, he knew they had made the right choice. Some things were worth fighting for. Freedom was one of them. Love was another. Now they just had to survive what came next. By mid-morning, the palace guards surrounded the human embassy. There were hundreds of them, all armed, all waiting. No one could enter or leave. The embassy was under siege. Daniel stood in the operations room with and the rest of the human staff. They were watching security cameras that showed the guards outside. Sat in a corner, wrapped in a blanket, drinking hot tea that someone had given her. "The king just sent an official message," one of the staff members said. "He is demanding that we return Princess immediately. He is calling her removal a kidnapping." "We did not kidnap anyone," said sharply. "She came here on her own and requested asylum. That is completely legal under our laws." "He does not care about our laws," Daniel said. "He wants his daughter back." His communication device beeped. She answered it, and King's face appeared on the screen. He looked like he had not slept. His eyes were full of rage. "Ambassador," the king said, "you are harboring a fugitive. Return my daughter now, or there will be war." "Your Majesty," said calmly, "Princess came to us of her own free will. She has requested asylum. According to Earth law, we must consider her request fairly. We cannot simply hand her over." "She is my daughter," the king roared. "She belongs to me." "With respect, Your Majesty, she is a grown woman. She does not belong to anyone." The king's face went dark. "You dare lecture me about my own child, about my own laws? This is an act of war, Ambassador. I am giving you 1 hour to return. If you refuse, I will order my guards to storm your embassy and take her by force. If you do that, you will be attacking Earth's sovereign territory. That would be a declaration of war against humanity." "Then war it is," the king said. 1 hour. After that, I will do what I must." The screen went black. Everyone in the room was silent. "He is bluffing," one staff member said. "He would not really start a war over this." "He would," said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "You do not understand my father. He sees this as a personal insult, as a challenge to his authority. He will burn the galaxy before he admits weakness." Then what do we do? Asked. Stood up, putting down her tea. Let me speak to him. Let me try to make him understand. He will just order you to come home, Daniel said. Maybe, but maybe I can reach him. He is my father after all. Once, a long time ago, he loved me for more than just being a princess. Thought about it, then nodded. All right, we will set up a secure channel, but Daniel will be with you. If things go bad, we end the call immediately. 10 minutes later, and Daniel sat in front of a screen. When it activated, King appeared. For a moment, his face softened when he saw his daughter. Then the hardness returned. He said, "Come home, end this foolishness." "Father, please listen to me," said. "I cannot marry Lord. I do not love him. I barely know him. You are giving me away like property. You are royalty. Love has nothing to do with marriage. You know this." "But why?" His voice cracked. "Why does being born a princess mean I have no choice? Why does my life belong to everyone except me?" "Because that is the price of power," the king said. "Because your happiness is less important than the empire's stability. I thought you understood your duty." "I did understand it. For my whole life I did everything you asked. I studied, I trained, I smiled at nobles I hated. I never complained." Tears ran down his face. "But then I met someone who showed me what freedom looks like. Someone who treated servants like people. Someone who believes that every life has value, no matter what caste they were born into." The king's eyes moved to Daniel. "This human has poisoned your mind against your own people." "No," said firmly. He opened my eyes. "Father, do you even know what happens in the lower levels of our cities? Do you know how brown caste children go hungry while nobles waste food? Do you know that people die from treatable illnesses because only white caste can afford medicine? That is the way things have always been." "That does not make it right," leaned forward. "Father, you raised me to be strong. You taught me to think for myself. You said a good ruler must care about all their people, not just the nobles. Those were your words." For a moment the king's expression wavered. Then it hardened again. "You are confused. The humans have manipulated you. Come home and we will fix this." "I am not confused," said. "For the first time in my life I see clearly, and I will not come home unless things change." "Then you are no longer my daughter," the king said coldly. "You are a traitor to your people and your family. I disown you. As of now, you have no title, no rank, and no place in this empire." Gasped like she had been struck, Daniel put his hand on her shoulder. "And you, human," the king turned his anger on Daniel. "You have stolen my daughter and destroyed my family. The trade agreements are canceled. All humans are ordered to leave Valyrian space within 48 hours. If any human ship is found in our territory after that, it will be destroyed." The screen went black. Broke down crying. Daniel held her while she sobbed, stood nearby, her face pale. "That went worse than I hoped," said quietly. Over the next few hours, the situation got more tense. The number of guards outside doubled. The king made a public announcement about his betrayal, painting her as a victim of human manipulation. He ordered all Valyrian citizens to view humans as enemies. But something unexpected happened. It started in the lower levels of the capital city. A small group of brown caste workers gathered in a plaza holding signs. "Freedom for Princess," the signs said. "The princess who saw us." More people joined them, gray caste workers, even a few white caste young people. The crowd grew bigger. They were not violent, just standing together, demanding that be allowed to choose her own life. The palace guards tried to break up the protest, but it had spread to other cities. In factories and schools and markets, people were talking about the princess who ran away, about human ideas of freedom and choice, about whether the caste system was really fair. Daniel watched the news feeds with growing amazement. "This is incredible. Your people support you." "Some of them do," said. She had stopped crying and was watching the screens with fierce attention. "But many others will see me as a traitor. I have split my people." You have started a conversation, said. That is powerful. But it is not enough, said. My father will crush these protests. He has done it before, unless— She stood up suddenly. I need to speak to my people directly, not through my father's official channels. How? Daniel asked. Can you broadcast a signal that all Valyrians can receive? Something my father cannot block. Thought about it? Maybe. We have strong communication equipment. If we boost the signal and use emergency frequencies, we might be able to reach most of the planet. But it would only work once. After that, they would jam us. Once is enough, said. I need to tell them the truth, all of it. They worked quickly to set up the broadcast, wrote notes about what she wanted to say. Daniel helped her practice. 2 hours later, everything was ready. Sat in front of the camera. She looked tired and scared, but also determined. When the light turned green, she began to speak. My people, I am Princess. Many of you have heard that I am a traitor, that I abandoned my family and my duty. I want to tell you what really happened. She took a deep breath and continued. I fell in love with a human. His name is Daniel Cooper, and he showed me something I had never seen before. He showed me a world where people are free to choose their own lives, where kindness matters more than rank, where servants are treated like people, not property. When I tried to share these ideas with my father, he told me I was confused. He ordered me to marry a man I do not love. He said my feelings do not matter, that my life belongs to the Empire, not to me. And I realized that if I am not free, then none of us are truly free. The caste system tells us that some people are born better than others, but who decided that? Our ancestors, thousands of years ago, using force and violence. Is that justice? Is that natural? Or is it just power pretending to be truth? I am not asking you to betray our empire. I am asking you to question whether our empire is living up to its own ideals. Can we be truly great if we deny freedom to most of our people? Can we be truly strong if our strength comes from oppression? I love my people. I love my father, even though he has disowned me. But I cannot go back to pretending that our system is perfect. I cannot accept a life where I have no choice. To everyone watching this, I have one message. You deserve a choice too. Whether you are white caste or brown caste, noble or servant, you deserve to be treated with dignity. You deserve the chance to make your own decisions about your life. I do not know what will happen to me now. Maybe my father will force me to return. Maybe I will never see my home again. But I do not regret this choice. For the first time in my life, I am choosing my own path, and that feeling is worth everything. His voice softened. I know change is scary, I am scared too. But sometimes the right thing is also the hardest thing. Be brave, my people, question, think, choose. That is all I ask. The broadcast ended. For a moment, no one moved. Then's communication device started going crazy with incoming messages. The protests outside doubled in size, then tripled. Citizens from all castes were flooding into the streets, demanding reforms, demanding freedom. Some were even calling for the king to step down. In the embassy, everyone watched in stunned silence as history changed in front of their eyes. You did it, Daniel said to. You reached them. We did it, corrected, and now we have to see if it was enough. Outside, the palace guards were getting nervous. The crowds were getting too big to control. And somewhere in the palace, King was watching his empire begin to shake at its foundations. For 3 days, the Valyrian capital was in chaos. Millions of people filled the streets. They were not rioting or destroying things. They were just standing together, refusing to move until the king listened to them. Brown caste workers stopped working. Gray caste merchants closed their shops. Even some white caste nobles joined the protests, young people who had been inspired by his words. The human embassy remained surrounded by guards, but the guards looked uncertain now. Some of them had family members in the protests. They were starting to question their orders. Inside the embassy, watched the news feeds constantly. She barely ate or slept. Daniel stayed with her, worried about her health. "You need to rest," he said gently. "I cannot rest while my people are in the streets," replied. "What if my father uses force to stop them? What if people get hurt because of what I started?" "You started a movement for freedom," Daniel said. "That is not something to regret." "But at what cost?" Before Daniel could answer, rushed into the room. "Someone is here to see Princess Lyra. She is alone and unarmed. Should we let her in?" Stood up immediately. "Yes, let her through." A few minutes later, Lyra entered. She looked exhausted, her white robes dirty and wrinkled, but she smiled when she saw her sister. Lyra said. The two sisters hugged tightly. "How did you get here?" asked. "Father must be furious that you came." "He does not know. Things are very chaotic in the palace right now." Lyra sat down, accepting water that Daniel offered. "I need to tell you what is happening. The king is trapped. Half his advisors are telling him to crush the protests with military force. The other half are warning that doing so could trigger a civil war." "What does father want to do?" asked. "He is afraid," Lyra said quietly. "I have never seen him like this. He keeps saying that he failed you, that he drove you away. But he is also angry and proud. He cannot admit he was wrong, not publicly. That would destroy his authority." "So nothing changes," said bitterly. "I did not say that." Lyra leaned forward. "I spent the last 3 days talking to him, reminding him of Mother." "When still Mother?" "Yes, Mother used to argue with him about the caste system. Did you know that? She wanted reforms. She wanted brown caste children to have access to education. Father would not listen to her. After she died, he buried those ideas with her." Lyra's voice was sad. "I told him that you are just like Mother, strong, compassionate, willing to stand up for what is right. I asked him if he wanted to lose you the same way he lost her." "What did he say?" whispered. "He cried. I have not seen him cry since Mother's funeral." Lyra took her sister's hand. "He wants to see you. He has agreed to meet with you and Daniel privately, without guards or advisors, just the three of you talking." "It could be a trap," Daniel said. "It could be," Lyra admitted. "But I do not think it is. I think he finally realizes that he cannot force you to come back. He has to convince you, and to do that he has to listen." Looked at Daniel. "What do you think?" "I think your sister is right. This might be our only chance to reach him." "Then I will go," said, "but Daniel comes with me." "He expected that," Lyra said. 2 hours later, under cover of darkness, a small vehicle left the embassy through a hidden exit. Daniel and were inside, along with Lyra and one embassy security officer. They drove to a private estate outside the city, a place the royal family used for retreats. King waited for them in a small room with a fireplace. He wore simple robes, not his usual formal clothes. He looked older than Daniel remembered, tired. When entered, the king stood up. For a long moment, father and daughter just stared at each other. Then the king spoke. "I am sorry." Those 2 words seemed to cost him everything. Eyes filled with tears. "I am sorry that I did not listen to you," the king continued. "I am sorry that I treated your feelings as if they did not matter. I am sorry that I tried to force you into a life you did not choose." He paused. "I told myself I was doing what was best for the empire, but the truth is I was afraid, afraid of change, afraid of losing you, and in my fear I pushed you away." "Father," said, her voice breaking. "Let me finish, please." The king sat down heavily. "These past few days, watching the protests, reading the messages from our people, I realized something. The empire is changing whether I want it to or not. Your broadcast reached billions of Valyrians. You started something I cannot stop. The only question now is whether I fight against this change or lead it." "What are you saying?" asked. "I am saying that I was wrong, about the caste system, about forced marriages, about many things." The king looked directly at Daniel. "And I was wrong about humans. I called your people primitive, but you understand something we forgot, that freedom matters, that kindness matters, that every person deserves dignity, no matter what rank they were born into. Daniel did not know what to say. He had not expected this. "I am prepared to make a deal," the king said. "You can choose your own path. If you want to marry this human, I will not stop you, but I need something from you in return." "What?" asked carefully. "Come home, not as my puppet but as my partner. Help me reform the empire. Use your voice and your courage to guide us through these changes. The people love you now. They see you as a symbol of freedom. I need you to help me give them that freedom without tearing the empire apart in the process." "You want me to be your advisor?" asked, surprised. "More than that, I want you to be the face of reform, to work with representatives from all castes to create new laws, to travel to our colonies and spread these new ideas." The king's voice was sincere. "You started a revolution, now help me make it succeed." Looked at Daniel. "What about us?" "Your human can stay," the king said, though he looked uncomfortable saying it. "He can serve as a cultural advisor or whatever title makes sense. I will not pretend to be happy about this relationship, but I can accept it." "That is not enough," said firmly. "I will not hide Daniel or pretend our relationship is shameful. If I come back, it must be with full recognition. We will live openly. We will be partners in both work and life." The king's jaw tightened. Daniel could see him struggling with his pride. Finally, he nodded. "Agreed, though I warn you, many nobles will be scandalized." "Let them be scandalized," said. "Maybe that is exactly what they need." "There is one more thing," the king said. "Lord, I already canceled the engagement, but he is demanding compensation for the insult. He has powerful allies." "I will speak to Lord," Daniel said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. "Let me explain to him directly why this marriage was never going to work, soldier to soldier." The king raised an eyebrow. "You think he will listen to a human?" "I think he will listen to honesty," Daniel said. "And if he does not, then he was never worthy of in the first place." A small smile crossed the king's face. "You have courage, Daniel Cooper. Perhaps I was too quick to judge your people." They talked for hours that night, working out details. How the reforms would be implemented. How and Daniel's relationship would be presented to the public. How humans and Valyrians could work together to build something new. When they finally returned to the embassy near dawn, was waiting anxiously. "Well," she asked. "We have an agreement," said, smiling. "I am going home, but on my terms." The next day, the king made a public announcement. He appeared on every screen across the empire, looking tired but determined. "My people," he began, "I have spent the past week listening to the protests, to the messages, to my daughter, and I have realized that change must come to our empire." He outlined a series of reforms. Brown caste children would receive free education. Health care would be available to all castes. Forced marriages would be illegal. Citizens could petition for caste changes based on merit, not birth. "These changes will not happen overnight," the king said. "They will take years, maybe generations, but we must start now. And to lead this effort, I am appointing Princess as my chief advisor for social reform. She will work with representatives from all levels of society to ensure that every Valyrian has a voice." The king paused, and Daniel could see him swallow his pride. "My daughter has also chosen to form a partnership with Daniel Cooper, a human diplomat. I have given them my blessing. This union represents a new era of cooperation between our species." The announcement caused an explosion of reactions. Some Valyrians celebrated in the streets. Others were angry and promised resistance. But the message was clear. Change was coming. Over the next few months, Daniel watched as transformed from a sheltered princess into a powerful leader. She traveled across the empire, meeting with workers and farmers and students. She listened to their complaints and their hopes. She fought with stubborn nobles who resisted change. She negotiated compromises that satisfied no one completely but moved everyone forward. Daniel worked beside her, offering perspective from human experience. He helped design education programs modeled on Earth schools. He advised on transition plans that gave people time to adjust to new systems. And when was exhausted and frustrated, he reminded her why this work mattered. Lord, surprisingly, became an ally. After a long conversation with Daniel, he admitted that he had never wanted to marry either. The engagement had been his father's idea. Once freed from that obligation, he became one of the most vocal supporters of caste reform, using his influence to convince other nobles. A year after his broadcast, the first caste barrier was officially removed. Brown caste children could now attend the same schools as white caste children. It was a small step, but it was real progress. To celebrate, King threw a festival in the capital. For the first time in Valyrian history, all castes were invited to celebrate together in the palace gardens. Daniel stood on a balcony, watching the crowd below. People in white robes danced with people in brown robes. Children played together without caring about their parents' ranks. "Do you regret it?" Daniel asked quietly, "giving up your chance at a normal life?" "What is normal?" laughed. "I have you. I have work that matters. I have my father's respect and my people's love. I have everything I need. Even if it is harder than you expected." "Especially because it is harder," said. "Nothing worth doing is easy." Approached them holding 3 glasses of wine. "A toast," she said, "to the most successful diplomatic mission in human history. We came here for trade agreements. We ended up starting a social revolution." "We did not start it," said. "Daniel did. When he helped that old servant on my first day, when he treated me like a person instead of just a princess, he showed me what was possible." "You did the hard part," Daniel said. "I just asked questions. You found the answers." They raised their glasses and drank. Below them, the festival continued. Humans and Valyrians mingled together, sharing food and stories. Children from Earth played with Valyrian children, teaching each other games from their different worlds. King joined them on the balcony. He looked at the scene below and shook his head in wonder. "My ancestors would be horrified," he said. "All these castes mixing together, humans and Valyrians as equals." "Maybe that means we are doing something right," said. The king laughed. "Maybe it does." He put his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Your mother would be proud of you, I know I am." As the sun set over the capital, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Daniel thought about how far they had all come. A year ago, he had been nervous about meeting aliens. Now he was standing beside an alien princess, helping to reshape an entire civilization. Love had brought them together. Courage had kept them together. And together they had changed the galaxy, one small step at a time. The road ahead was still long. There would be more fights, more resistance, more obstacles. But looking at its determined face and the celebrating crowd below, Daniel knew they would face it all together. Some things were worth fighting for. Freedom was one of them. Equality was another. And love was worth all of it. Even a king could not stop that truth. The festival continued late into the night, the sound of laughter and music drifting up to the stars above, a promise of better days to come.